Imagine waking up to complete silence. The air is so cold that every breath burns your lungs. Snow stretches in every direction. The trees are bare. The rivers are frozen solid. There are no farms. There are no grocery stores. There is no food waiting for you at home. If you don't find something to eat today, your family may not survive the week. This wasn't a nightmare. It was winter for prehistoric humans. Around 20,000 years ago, during the Last Glacial Maximum, huge parts of Europe, Asia, and North America were locked beneath ice. In some places, temperatures were more than 10 degrees Celsius colder than they are today. Winter wasn't just a season. It was a relentless test of survival that lasted for months. So how did ancient humans manage to stay alive when the land seemed completely empty? The answer is far more surprising than simply hunting animals. Archaeological discoveries reveal that prehistoric humans became masters of planning, teamwork, and reading nature in ways that most of us can barely imagine today. Their survival wasn't based on strength alone. It depended on intelligence, patience, and thousands of years of experience passed from one generation to the next. One of the biggest misconceptions about the Ice Age is that it was a frozen desert with almost no life. In reality, vast regions of northern Eurasia were covered by an enormous ecosystem that scientists call the Mammoth Steppe. This landscape stretched from Western Europe across Siberia and into Alaska. It looked harsh, but it supported millions of grazing animals. Massive herds of woolly mammoths, reindeer, wild horses, steppe bison, and musk oxen moved across these open plains every year in search of fresh grass buried beneath the snow. To prehistoric humans, these animals weren't just food, they were moving lifelines. Instead of staying in one place and hoping food would appear, ancient hunter-gatherers learned to follow these migrations with incredible precision. Long before maps or written language existed, they could recognize tiny changes in the landscape, animal tracks, wind direction, and even the behavior of birds. Every clue helped them predict where a herd would appear next. Evidence for this strategy comes from Dolní Věstonice in the modern-day Czech Republic. It is one of the most remarkable Ice Age archaeological sites ever discovered. Dating back nearly 30,000 years, the site contains thousands of animal bones, finely crafted stone tools, and the remains of temporary camps built directly along migration routes. These weren't random campsites. They were carefully chosen locations where hunters could intercept animals at exactly the right moment. Imagine watching hundreds of reindeer moving across a snowy valley. You don't chase them immediately. You wait. You study the terrain. You notice a narrow pass between rocky hills where the herd must travel. Hours later, the animals enter the bottleneck. Suddenly, your chances of success increase dramatically. This level of planning required extraordinary cooperation. Unlike many predators, humans weren't the fastest or the strongest animals on the Ice Age landscape. A healthy mammoth could weigh more than 6 tons. Even a single bison was capable of killing a hunter with one charge. Success depended on working together. Anthropologists believe hunting parties communicated through simple spoken language, hand signals, and years of shared experience. Every member of the group had a specific role. Some hunters quietly guided animals toward natural traps. Others waited with carefully crafted wooden spears tipped with razor-sharp stone points. One successful hunt could provide hundreds of kilograms of meat, but the hunt itself was only the beginning. The real challenge started after the animal was on the ground. Fresh meat spoils quickly even during cold weather. A family couldn't possibly eat an entire mammoth before it began to rot. Ancient humans needed another strategy if they wanted one successful hunt to feed them throughout the long winter. And that strategy changed everything. The solution was something many people never associate with prehistoric humans. They became experts at preserving food. Long before agriculture, refrigerators, or even pottery, hunter-gatherers understood that freezing temperatures could become their greatest ally. During the Ice Age, nature itself acted like an enormous freezer. Large pieces of meat were stored beneath packed snow. They were stored inside frozen ground. They were also stored in naturally cold caves where low temperatures slowed spoilage for weeks or even months. But freezing wasn't their only method. Archaeologists believe many hunter-gatherer groups also dried thin strips of meat in the cold, dry winter air. Moisture disappeared. Bacteria struggled to grow. The meat became lighter, tougher, and much easier to carry. Combined with rendered animal fat, this preserved food created an energy-rich supply that could sustain an entire group when hunting failed. Nothing from a successful hunt was wasted. The muscles became food. The fat was carefully collected because it contained more than twice the calories of protein. During winter, fat could mean the difference between life and death. The liver, heart, kidneys, and even bone marrow were eaten because they were packed with vitamins and nutrients that were impossible to find elsewhere during the cold season. Bones were cracked open using heavy stones to reach the rich marrow hidden inside. Archaeological sites across Europe show thousands of broken bones with the same distinctive fracture patterns. This proves that prehistoric humans understood their nutritional value tens of thousands of years before modern science explained it. Even the skin had a purpose. Animal hides became warm clothing blankets and shelter coverings. Tendons were turned into strong sewing thread. Antlers and bones became needles, fishing tools, spear tips and handles. A single animal supported almost every part of daily life. Yet winter was still unpredictable. Sometimes the herds never arrived. Sometimes deep snow made hunting almost impossible. So prehistoric humans developed another remarkable survival strategy. They widened their menu. Excavations at sites across Ice Age Europe show that people didn't rely on large animals alone. They trapped rabbits. They caught fish beneath frozen rivers. They collected shellfish along coastlines. They gathered bird eggs whenever they could. They searched for edible roots hidden beneath the snow. Even in winter, certain tree barks, pine nuts, and stored seeds could provide valuable calories. Research on modern hunter-gatherer societies, such as the Hadza of Tanzania and Arctic indigenous communities, suggests that flexibility has always been one of humanity's greatest strengths. When one food source disappeared, people adapted instead of giving up. But perhaps the most important survival tool wasn't a weapon or a trap. It was knowledge. Parents taught children how to recognize animal tracks almost as soon as they could walk. Young hunters learned which valleys filled with snow first. They learned where frozen rivers became dangerous. They learned which caves offered shelter during storms. Every generation inherited thousands of observations collected over centuries. There were no books, no written maps, no weather forecast. Instead, the landscape itself became a living library. Every hill, every river, every migration route, and every change in the wind carried information that could save lives. This may explain why humans spread into some of the harshest environments on Earth while many larger Ice Age animals eventually disappeared. Mammoths, woolly rhinos, and giant deer were powerful, but they depended on instinct. Humans depended on something far more adaptable: the ability to learn, remember, cooperate, and pass knowledge from one generation to the next. When you open your refrigerator today, it is easy to forget how effortless finding food has become. For prehistoric humans, every meal represented days of planning, careful observation, teamwork, and thousands of years of accumulated experience. Winter wasn't survived because humans were the strongest creatures on Earth. It was survived because they became the smartest. And perhaps that is the real reason you are here today. Thousands of generations before you learned how to outthink a frozen world. Every winter meal you eat is a quiet reminder of the people who first discovered how to find food when almost nothing seemed alive.